So I woke up yelling because today's my birthday and I wanted everyone to know. But then I realized no one was awake in my house. So I yelled in everyone's room to remind them that today was my birthday. And then I realized I wanted the whole city to know. So I climbed up my ladder and went onto the roof, took a deep breath and yelled, "Oh, today's my birthday! Let's go!" But then I realized I wanted the whole world to know. So I went on the news. "Oh, guess what, world? Today's my birthday!" After doing that, I thought the whole world knew that it was my birthday. But I had a feeling I was forgetting someone. When suddenly, a car came out of nowhere and hit me. Now I remember who I forgot. Guess what, God? Today's my birthday! Takis are my son Caden's favorite snacks. He's been eating them since he was a baby, but one day I got a call from his doctor saying that Takis are burning holes in kids' stomachs. So I had no choice but to ban Caden from eating Takis. After throwing out every bag we had in the house, I caught him eating a bag in the tree. He must have bought them from the grocery store. So I decided to go there and buy all of them so he couldn't buy them anymore. But then I realized I couldn't go home with all of those Takis. So I placed all the Takis behind my tire and ran over them. My tire had Takis crumbs all over them and I brushed them off. But then my fingers had Takis flavoring on them. Out of curiosity, I took a lick and my eyes lit up. It was the best thing I ever tasted. So I went back in the store and bought me a new bag and ate it in seconds. When I got home, Caden could smell my breath from across the room. He laughed and pulled out a bag for us to share. Comment below which Takis flavor you like best. I was swimming in the ocean when my son Caden asked me to get his goggles. I hurried back to our chairs to fetch them for him. Just 10 seconds later, he came running to me, saying he had lost his goggles. We searched the sand even with the help of a dog, but couldn't find them. I had to go back to our chairs to grab my goggles so I could look in the ocean. Despite my efforts, the goggles were nowhere to be found. I spotted a pink cloth underwater and thought the goggles might be underneath, but they weren't there. Returning to the chairs, I checked if Destiny had found them, but they were still missing. As I sat down, accepting that the goggles were lost, I went to tell Caden the unfortunate news, only to find that he was already holding them. Share a time you wasted your parents' time in the comments below. Today was the hottest day of spring so far, and I wanted to relax in the pool, but I realized my pool float was popped, so I ran to the store to buy a new one, only to find that there were none left. So I had no choice but to settle for a pool noodle. However, I sank when I tried to relax on it, so I decided to build my own noodle float. The first thing I had to do was figure out how many noodles I needed. To find out, I had to weigh myself, then divide that number by my age. I needed 6 noodles, so I went to the store, bought them, and combined them using some tape. Now it was time for the test. I put my noodle float in the water, and it worked. If I'm 30 years old and I needed 6 noodles, how much do I weigh? Comment your answer below. I went to my new neighbor's house to introduce myself, and when the door swung open, standing before me was none other than Bron the Bully from my middle school. Bron, you're my new neighbor? You live next door? Oh yeah, now I get to beat you up every day for the rest of your life. I didn't want to get beat up every day for the rest of my life, so I paid Bron $100 to be friends. It's not easy being Bron's neighbor though. When I get a package, he opens them up. When I come home from work, he's in my pool, and he forces me to watch boxing matches with him. Come on, Desmond, spar with me. But it was worth it. At least he wasn't beating me down. But today, he came by asking me for another $100. Bron, I already paid you, and I don't have another $100. Oh, well, you know what that means? He pulled out a pencil and placed it on his shoulder, just like how he did in middle school. Knock the pencil off my shoulder. I had no choice but to do it. Okay, I'm gonna beat you up after work tomorrow, little boy. Comment below what you think I should have done. So I stayed over at my friend's house when I realized I had forgotten my sleeping bag. My friend didn't have any extra blankets and it was freezing. I had no choice but to find a way to stay warm. At first, I grabbed a bunch of paper towels and tried to make a blanket out of them, but then a gust of wind blew them away. I then searched in my bag and found swimming trunks to use as a blanket, but they didn't cover my entire body. So I wondered what else I could use and found the perfect solution. My towel. It was soft and covered my whole body. However, I soon realized it was still wet from my shower. In that moment, I accepted the fact that I might freeze to death, but then something caught my eye. A beanbag chair. I grabbed it and placed it over my body, and surprisingly, it provided warmth. Share in the comments below a time when you felt cold at your friend's house. I went to Target to buy a puzzle because my wife said she wanted me to be smarter. As soon as I got home, I opened up the box and got started. I was making out pretty good, but then I got thirsty. I stood up and got some water, and when I came back, the puzzle was finished. I was so confused, but instead of wasting time, I just went out and bought another puzzle. By the time I got started, it was pretty late and I was getting tired, so I went to bed. The next morning, I made myself some coffee and headed to my puzzle. But once again, it was finished. Someone was completing my puzzles and I wanted to know who. So I attached my GoPro to my telescope to hide it and started watching a live feed on my iPad. A few minutes later, I found out who was doing my puzzles. It was my dog, Snoop. I caught him red-handed and he had nothing to say about it. Comment below what games your pet can play. I woke up yelling because my web launcher was finally delivered. I've been waiting all week for it because I wanted to be annoying my family with it. But when I tried it out, it didn't work. I looked in the box for instructions, but there weren't any. So I had no choice but to go to the inventor's house and ask him how to use it. I got in my Tesla and went to put it into drive, but my Tesla was updating. So I decided to take the train, but I missed it by a few seconds. But I wasn't going to let that stop me. I went back home, got my bike, and took off as fast as I could. But then I realized I forgot to pump my tires. So I ditched my bike and started running. But then the beam and sun started slowing me down. I was about to have a heat stroke, so I went back home. I was so mad because I wasn't going to get to play with my web launcher. But when I banged my hands on the table, the launcher shot its web right onto Destiny's head. Comment below if you ever bought something that was broken. So I was just packing the car for a beach day when my son Caden asked me if he could bring his new action figures. I told him no because he always leaves his toys at the beach, but as we were driving there, I heard him making sounds in the back seat. When I turned around, he was playing with his toys and I wasn't happy about it. I asked him why he brought them and he said he just wanted to play with them in the car. When we pulled up to the beach club, I told him to leave his toys in the car. As I was unpacking our belongings, I heard him making sounds again. I turned around to find him playing with his action figures again. I was furious he wasn't listening to me, so I had no choice but to take his toys away so he wouldn't leave them. Later, back at home, Caden wanted his toys back, but I realized I left them at the pool. I had to go back only to find the action figures were gone. Who do you think is to blame? Share your thoughts in the comments. I was riding my Segway in the house when all of a sudden I heard something inside my wall. I was about to run away, but then I remembered I was the man of the house and it was my job to take action. So I had no choice but to find out what was in my wall. At first, I tried to drum on the wall, hoping that whatever it was would run out where it came from. But then I heard scratching noises, so I figured it might be a cat, and I raced to the store and bought some catnip to lure it out. But nothing happened. Then I realized it might just be too scared to come out. So I made a puppet and sang a friendly song telling it that it was okay to come out. But still nothing happened. Suddenly, I remembered that I had just bought a long, skinny camera that can fit in the walls. I put it in the air vent and I couldn't believe it. It was my dog, Snoop. Comment below if you have ever heard something creepy in your home. I called my son Caden to ask him which flavor prime drink he wanted, but he didn't answer. Turns out he didn't have any phone service in our backyard. I didn't want there to ever be a time that I couldn't get in touch with him, so I had no choice but to buy worldwide Walkie Talkies. I wanted to make sure they truly had unlimited reach, so I went in the front yard to see if Caden could still hear me. He said he could, but I realized I was still pretty close to the house. So I got on my electric scooter and rode 20 miles down to the train station, then tested them again. He said he could still hear me, and I was extremely impressed. I wanted to do the ultimate test, so I ran up 60 floors into my friend's apartment, and when I tested the Walkie Talkies, Caden didn't respond. I knew it was too good to be true, so I came home to return the Walkie Talkies, but it turns out Caden did hear me. He just didn't feel like responding. Comment below if you ever ignored your parents. I was at the park eating Takis and ice cream when I remembered I had to pick up my cousin from the airport. I'm known for getting easily distracted, but this time I wanted to be on time. But as I was running to my car, I noticed some monkey bars. I started playing on them, but remembered that I was on a mission, so I jumped down and started running again. But then I realized I didn't do my daily 50 pull-ups, so I ran to the park's gym and started doing pull-ups. But then I got a text message from my cousin saying he was landing in 20 minutes, so I snapped out of it and started heading to my car. But after all that running, I was thirsty, so I stopped to get some frozen lemonade. I didn't want to get a brain freeze, so I walked to the ocean while drinking my lemonade slowly. But then I realized it was past the time I was supposed to be at the airport. I was 3 hours late and my cousin wasn't happy about it. Comment below a time you were late for something. 6 years ago, I heard that if you broke a mirror, you would have 7 years of bad luck. I thought it was a myth and I broke a mirror. When I woke up the next morning, I had a cough that lasted for a year. In year 2, anytime I played drums, which is one of my favorite things to do, my drumsticks broke instantly. In year 3, anytime I ate something, it tasted like rotten eggs. In year 4, flies followed me wherever I went. In year 5, YouTube fired me and I had to get a boring desk job. In year 6, anytime I played a C note on the piano, I got electrocuted. Now it's year 7, which means I'm about to start going through something else. Comment below what unfortunate thing you think I'm going to experience next. I like to drink my prime out of a wine glass so I can feel fancy, but every time I do, my wine glass falls and breaks. So I decided to buy an unbreakable wine glass. I only had one prime left, so I wanted to make sure the glass was truly unbreakable. So the first test was me simply dropping it onto the floor and it passed. For the next test, I went on my balcony and let it go, and to my surprise, it didn't have a scratch. I wanted to try something even crazier, so I used my ladder to climb up on the roof. I threw it, and when I checked, it was still okay. Now it was time for the ultimate test. I laid the wine glass under my Tesla's tire and went into reverse. Although the glass glass broke, I was still impressed. Comment below something else I should run over. So I was just reading the comments on my YouTube videos when I realized I have a ton of hate comments. So I decided to quit YouTube. I packed up all my video equipment and put them into storage. But then Destiny said I couldn't sit around and do nothing all day, so I had no choice but to get a regular job. First I got a job at McDonald's, but I got fired for coming to work out of uniform. Then I got a job at GameStop, but I got fired again for playing games all day. So I had no choice but to get a boring job talking to angry customers. Every person I talked to said they hated me, and I realized the comments were worse than the ones on YouTube. So I quit and became a YouTuber again. Comment below if you ever quit at something. So I was just eating my jelly and celery snack when my friend asked me how to become a good YouTuber. Since I have 11 million subscribers, I decided to teach him everything I know. First, I showed him all of the cameras I have, and he ordered the same ones. Then I showed him all of the different lights I have, and he ordered those too. Next, I showed him how I come up with my video ideas and how I film them. Lastly, I taught him how I edit my videos. He asked lots of questions and picked up on everything really fast, but then I checked out his first YouTube video, and it was just like my videos. Turns out he was a YouTube subscriber stealer and was trying to steal all of my subscribers. Subscribe to help me get to 12 million subscribers so he doesn't steal them all. I was just eating a ketchup and banana snack when I found my son Caden sitting in the backyard looking bored. That's when I realized he had no activities to do, so I decided to build a tree swing for him. I went in my garage and got all the tools and materials I needed. As I started building the swing, I realized the rope I had was too short to reach the tree, so I drove to the store and bought a longer strap. When I got back, I attached the strap to the tree branch, but then I slipped and was dangling from the tree. I thought it was over for me until I realized that I could just jump down. I finally got the swing up on the branch and I was done, but when I looked at the swing, I felt like it wasn't enough. So I went back to the store and found a ninja twister swing. I attached it to the tree, only to find out that the rope it came with was too short. Luckily, the straps I bought earlier came with 2 of them, and finally, I was completed. I called Caden out and he was so happy, but after 2 minutes of playing, he was bored again. Comment below the games you like to play in your backyard. I took my family to the water park, and as I was getting the towels out, I realized my son Caden disappeared. So I rushed to Destiny and asked if she seen him, and she thought he was with me, so we decided to split up to find him. Caden likes to play hide and seek, so I checked all the places he might have hid, but he wasn't there. So I ran to the nearest mat to see where else he might have gone, and I realized he most likely went on the water slides. So I ran to the first water slide I seen and went down it to see if he was at the bottom, but once again, he wasn't there. So I searched for the next slide he would have went on, and I'm not gonna lie, I was scared. I yelled all the way down that water slide to the point that I lost my voice, but Caden was still nowhere to be found. I was getting worried and was going to tell the security, but then I spotted Caden in the wave pool. Turns out Destiny found him hours ago and forgot to tell me. Comment below if you ever been lost. My cousin was thinking about getting a Tesla, so I let him try out mine. I showed him all the cool things the car could do, like how fast it could go. Once he got the hang of driving it, he started going really fast. I got really scared because I thought we might crash. I kept asking him to slow down, but he wouldn't listen and kept driving dangerously. I got so worried that I called 911 for help, but they didn't take me seriously and hung up on me. I tried to get help by yelling out the window, but my cousin closed it and locked it, so I couldn't get anyone's attention. I asked him to stop the car so I could get out, but then I realized we were in the middle of nowhere and I had left my phone in the car. I ran after him until he finally let me back in. I told him to relax, but he kept driving like a crazy person all the way home. Share a story about a time you rode in a fast car in the comments below. I glued my Apple Vision Pros to my face because I wanted to keep them on forever. But then suddenly the screen went dark because I forgot to charge them. So I had no choice but to go home. But there was only one problem. I couldn't see. So I pulled out my phone to honk my Tesla's horn. But I couldn't see where I was tapping. So I decided to walk. But then I started hearing cars zoom by and I was afraid to get hit. That's when I realized I needed to use my ears to find my way. But while I was trying to listen out for the cars, the only thing I heard were birds chirping. So I had no choice but to crawl so I could feel where I was going. Everything was going great, and then I felt something squishy under my hand. That's when suddenly my Apple Vision Pros came back on somehow. And when I looked at my hand, I was gifted with the smelly surprise. Comment below what you think I touched. I was just playing Fortnite with my best friend when he suddenly told me he was moving an hour away. I didn't want him to move, so I had no choice but to ruin his moving plans. I went with him to check out each apartment, and when we got to the first one, I sprayed fart spray all around. He thought the apartment stunk and didn't want to live there. When we got to the next apartment, I stuck my mini camera down the drain and made it seem like cockroaches were living in there. When we got to the last apartment, I was upset because it looked pretty nice, so I ran upstairs and started stomping, making him think there were loud neighbors above. He was over it and said he was done looking. When I got home, I started doing spins because I was glad my plan worked. But then suddenly, he called me saying he was about to check out one more apartment. I ran all the way there so I could sabotage the visit, but I was too late. He already had the keys to the apartment. Comment below if one of your friends ever moved away. I was just hanging out with my cousin when we decided to throw a house party. We went to the store and bought everything we needed. But then I realized it was also my friend's birthday, so I had no choice but to buy a cake. So I hopped in my Tesla and drove back to Target, but that Target was all out of cakes. So I drove to another Target, but that one said the baker quit. So I had no choice but to buy some ingredients and try to make my own cake. I've never baked anything in my life, so I asked ChatGPT how to make a cake. I followed every step, and to my surprise, it came out great. My cousin was shocked and gladly took a bite, but all of a sudden, he had to throw up. Turns out, I forgot to add sugar. Comment below if you ever made something nasty. I decided to take my family bowling, but I quickly realized that I wasn't very good at it. Everyone in my family bowled better than me, including my son Caden. I knew I had to improve, so I tried different things. First, I tried stretching before bowling, but it didn't help me knock down all the pins. Then, I thought maybe I was just hungry, so I ate some food and tried again, but I still didn't do well. I needed a new plan, so I saw my cousin playing video games in the arcade. He said playing video games helped him bowl better. I played a few racing games, and when I went back to bowl, I got a strike. I had one more chance to bowl, but since I didn't play any more video games, I didn't knock down all the pins. Can you tell me in the comments what it's called when you get 3 strikes in a row?